To conclude this class section and to summarize what we have discussed so far, we would like to say that by the early modern era, or by the end of the 18th century and the beginning of the 19th century, Korea under the Yi or Choson dynasty had become a Confucian state that to the Yi dynasty rulers and its Confucian scholars was more Confucian than the Chinese state and civilization, because by this time the Chinese state and civilization had come under the rule of a non-Chinese, non-Confucian group of people, the Manchus, the founder of the Qing dynasty. Because of the Manchu conquest in the middle part of the 17th century, and also because of the founding of the Qing dynasty in 1644, the Yi dynasty rulers and the Confucian scholar officials in Yi dynasty became less interested in and enthusiastic for the external contacts with the Chinese state and civilization. This wasn't going to last. Shortly after the consolidation of Manchu control over China, the Korean state and society would resume its tributary relationship with this massive empire. But during the initial period of the Qing dynasty, the Korean scholars and rulers did become less interested in the external contacts with the rest of the world, especially the Chinese state and empire. Over time, this lack of interest and enthusiasm in external contacts would be extended to the other regions, including the western part of the world that began to establish a global trading network in the 17th and 18th centuries, the early modern era, the effort that would affect most of the non-Western part of the world, including East Asian societies. This lack of enthusiasm in gaining external contacts with the rest of the world, including the western part of the world, gained Korea a reference and a name by which Korea had become known to the western part of the world all the way to the beginning of the 20th century. In 1882, American author, actually a missionary, William Griffiths, wrote a book entitled Korea, the Hermit Nation. To William Griffiths, Korea was one of the most isolated societies in the world, and that title, the Hermit Nation, had become a reference for Korea throughout the rest of the 19th century and the first several decades of the 20th century. And that is where Korea was standing in East Asia, and that was where Korea was standing in the Western perception about this nation in the middle part of the 19th century. Nowadays, if you visit South Korea and its capital city, Seoul, you would still see the symbols and the echoes of that hermit period of Korean history. On this picture of Seoul, we can still see the city gates, which were part of the palace for the Yi dynasty. And they are the symbols and reminders of that unique period of Korean history. But on the other hand, we can also see the striking comparison and contrast between traditions and international isolations and modernity, industrial development, rapid commercialization, and economic power that symbolize what South Korea is today at the beginning of the 21st century. As the students of Korean history, we might be able to draw link or a line between Korea as a hermit state and South Korea as one of the most industrialized societies at the beginning of the 21st century or the age of globalization.